Psychology says, the most dangerous kind of heartbreak isn't the one that happens after love. It's the one that happens because love never had a chance to begin. You meet someone who seems perfect. They're charming, confident, funny, maybe even kind. But as time passes, you start to feel this emotional distance, as if they're there, but not really there. No matter how much you try to connect, something's missing. It's like talking through glass. You see them, you hear them, but you can't feel them. And that, right there, is a classic sign of emotional unavailability. In today's video, we'll uncover 10 powerful psychology-backed signs that someone, or maybe even you, might be emotionally unavailable. Because the truth is, emotional unavailability isn't always obvious. It hides behind humor, success, independence, or even kindness. So, let's dive in, and as you listen, reflect on whether any of these signs feel familiar. Sign number 1. You keep things surface level. On purpose. Psychology says that emotionally unavailable people often keep conversations light and safe. They talk about their job, their hobbies, the news, maybe even their favorite TV show. But when the topic shifts toward feelings, vulnerability, or past pain, they shut down. You'll notice that they avoid deep emotional intimacy like it's a trap. They don't want to talk about their fears, their family issues, or what keeps them up at night. Why? Because emotional openness means giving someone the power to hurt them. And for someone who's emotionally unavailable, that's their greatest fear. They'll say things like, "I'm just not good at talking about my feelings," or "Let's not overthink this, I like to keep things simple." But beneath that simplicity is a defense mechanism, a way of staying in control. Psychologists call this emotional distancing, the subconscious act of protecting yourself from pain by never letting anyone get too close. If you find yourself doing this, or being with someone who does, it's not about lack of interest. It's about fear of vulnerability. Sign number 2. You're attracted to unavailable people. This might sound ironic, but psychology shows that emotionally unavailable people are often drawn to, you guessed it, other emotionally unavailable people. It's like two people dancing at arm's length. Both crave connection, but are terrified of what it might cost. If you notice a pattern of being attracted to partners who are distant, avoidant, or emotionally inconsistent, that's not a coincidence. It's your subconscious seeking familiarity. Maybe you grew up in an environment where love was conditional, where affection was earned, not freely given. So now, as an adult, your mind associates that emotional chase with love. Dr. Amir Levine, author of Attached, explains that emotionally unavailable individuals often confuse emotional intensity with intimacy. The push and pull, the uncertainty, the longing. It feels exciting, but in reality, it's emotional avoidance disguised as attraction. The truth is, if you're only drawn to people who can't fully love you, it might be because you're not ready to be fully loved either. Sign number 3. You fear dependence. Yours or theirs. Psychology says that one of the clearest signs of emotional unavailability is an intense fear of dependence, not just others depending on you, but you depending on them. Emotionally unavailable people value independence to an extreme. They see needing someone as weakness. They'll say things like, "I don't like being too attached," or "I just need my space," a lot of it. Now, there's nothing wrong with independence, but when independence becomes emotional isolation, it's a red flag. Psychologists call this avoidant attachment. It often develops in childhood when emotional needs were ignored or dismissed. As adults, these people learn to rely only on themselves because trusting others feels unsafe. They build walls, not out of arrogance, but out of protection, And while they might crave love, deep down, the idea of needing someone feels like giving up control, and that terrifies them. Sign number 4, you're always too busy for emotional intimacy. Let's talk about distraction, the emotionally unavailable person's favorite shield. Psychology says some people keep themselves perpetually busy to avoid facing their emotional world. They'll say, "I've just been swamped with work," or "I'll call when things settle down." But things never settle down, because being busy keeps them safe from introspection, from quiet moments that might reveal their loneliness, fears, or insecurities. They use productivity as armor, because stillness often brings emotions to the surface. Dr. Brené Brown once said, "When we numb the dark, we numb the light." By avoiding emotional discomfort, they also shut out connection, joy, and love. So if someone is always too busy to connect, it's not that they don't have time, it's that they don't want to feel. Sign number 5. You sabotage relationships when they get too close. Have you ever noticed someone who loses interest the moment things start getting serious? Psychology calls this fear of engulfment, the fear that closeness will lead to losing one's sense of self. Emotionally unavailable people crave love, but the second it feels real, the second they feel seen, they pull away. They might pick fights over small things. They might start doubting the relationship. Or they might suddenly claim they're not ready for anything serious. To an outsider, it looks confusing, but inside their mind, emotional closeness feels threatening. It triggers old wounds, maybe from a controlling parent, a painful betrayal, or a time when trust ended in heartbreak. So they run, not because they don't care, but because caring feels dangerous. Psychology says this is a classic self-sabotage pattern. The closer love gets, the faster they retreat. Sign number 6. You struggle to express or even identify your feelings. Here's something surprising. Emotionally unavailable people aren't always cold. Sometimes they're simply disconnected. Psychologists call this alexithymia, the difficulty in identifying and describing emotions. If you ask them, "What are you feeling right now?" they might genuinely not know. They might say, "I don't know. I guess I'm fine." They're not lying. They're emotionally disconnected, because for years they've learned to suppress emotions instead of processing them. And when you've spent a lifetime avoiding feelings, eventually you lose touch with them altogether. This doesn't mean they're heartless. It means they've been protecting themselves for so long that their emotional vocabulary has gone silent. Psychology says the first step to healing emotional unavailability is emotional awareness, learning to sit with feelings without judgment. Sign number 7. You avoid vulnerability at all costs. Vulnerability is the bridge to connection. But for emotionally unavailable people, that bridge feels like walking a tightrope without a safety net. They avoid saying "I love you" first. They hesitate to open up about their past. They downplay things that hurt them. Why? Because vulnerability means giving someone access to the parts of them they've worked hardest to hide. Psychologist Dr. Sue Johnson says that emotional availability begins with safe vulnerability, allowing another person to see your true self without the mask. But emotionally unavailable people fear that if someone sees who they really are, with all their flaws, insecurities, and emotions, they'll be rejected. So they keep conversations light, emotions hidden, and hearts locked away. The irony is that the very thing they avoid, vulnerability, is the only path to genuine love. Sign number 8. You struggle with empathy or emotional support. Emotionally unavailable individuals often appear detached or unsympathetic, but that's not always the case. Sometimes they want to be supportive, but just don't know how. When someone cries, they freeze. When a friend vents, they change the subject. When a partner is upset, they give logical advice instead of emotional comfort. Psychology says this happens because empathy requires emotional attunement, the ability to feel another's feelings. But if you've spent years avoiding your own emotions, tuning into someone else's can feel overwhelming. It's not that they don't care. It's that they haven't developed the emotional fluency to connect deeply. Over time, this lack of emotional responsiveness can make relationships feel one-sided or lonely, because love isn't just about words, it's about emotional presence. Sign number 9. You idealize or devalue people quickly. Here's a subtle but powerful sign. Emotionally unavailable people often swing between two extremes. They either put someone on a pedestal or lose interest just as fast. In psychology, this is linked to avoidant and dismissive attachment styles. When they first meet someone, they project an ideal, the perfect partner, the fantasy connection. But the moment reality appears, flaws, emotions, needs, they emotionally retreat. It's not because they're cruel or superficial, it's because imperfection triggers discomfort. Deep down, they fear being needed or being vulnerable, so they protect themselves by withdrawing emotionally before things get complicated. This pattern creates relationships full of sparks at the start, but silence in the middle and emptiness at the end. Sign number 10. You feel safer alone than in love. And finally, perhaps the most defining sign of emotional unavailability. You feel safer alone than in love. Psychology says this comes from emotional conditioning. If love in the past felt like pain, control, or betrayal, your mind learns that solitude equals safety. So you might crave connection, yet every time someone gets too close, you feel uneasy. You start finding reasons to pull away. You tell yourself, I'm just better off alone. But what you're really saying is, I don't trust love yet. It's not that emotionally unavailable people don't want love, they just want it without the risk. And that's not how love works. Love is risk. It's letting someone see the parts of you that even you struggle to face. And when you avoid that, you might protect yourself from heartbreak, but you also protect yourself from connection, growth, and joy. Healing emotional unavailability. Here's the truth psychology wants you to remember. Emotional unavailability isn't permanent. It's a defense mechanism, one that once protected you, but now holds you back. If you recognized yourself in any of these signs, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means you've survived. And survival often teaches us to guard our hearts, even from the people who want to love us. Healing begins with awareness, with noticing when you shut down, with catching yourself when you say, I'm fine, but you're not. It starts when you choose to stay instead of run, when you speak instead of stay silent, when you feel, even when it hurts. Psychology says emotional availability isn't about always being happy or open. It's about being honest with yourself and with others. Because love, real love, isn't found behind walls. It's found when you finally have the courage to take them down. So, how many of these signs did you recognize in yourself or in someone you know? Remember, being emotionally unavailable doesn't make you unlovable. It just means you've been protecting your heart for a long time, and maybe now it's time to start letting it heal. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to subscribe for more psychology-based insights into relationships, self-awareness, and human behavior. Until next time, remember, the greatest act of love begins with understanding yourself.